The rest. Faith-based organizations. Faith-based organizations. Okay, thank you very much. Then our civil society organizations. Civil society organizations. There we have our civil society organizations. Thank you very much. Take your seats, please. Our development partners. Development partners. We have our development partners there. Thank you. Minister of Education, headquarters and field team. Could you kindly stand up? A very big team. Please let's appreciate them. Asanteni sana. Then officials from the Teacher Service Commission, those who are around, please stand up. Let's appreciate them. Asanteni sana. CEOs from our sagas, CEOs from our semi-autonomous government agencies, there they are. Thank you very much. Please take your seats. Representatives from teacher trade unions, NAT, KUPET, teacher trade unions. Okay. Heads Association representatives, Kesha, Kepsha. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's appreciate him. Parents who are present here today, parents. Let's appreciate our parents. Thank you. Students, we invited quite a number of students from secondary schools, junior school. Those who are present, please stand up. We appreciate them. Thank you very much. County government representatives, representatives from our county governments, Nairobi especially. If you're here, okay, maybe they'll join us later. Chairs of commissions and the councils. If you are present, please, board chairs who are with us. Board chairs representing Dr. Riech, representing chair of KICD Council. Thank you, Dr. Riech. Universities, those from the university subsector, higher education, those who are around. There we have them. Thank you very much. Thank you. Kenya Public Association, I saw the chairman and his team. Let's appreciate them. These are the people who give us the textbooks that we use in our schools. Kewota, Kenya Women Association, Teachers Association. Then the national government CDF officials, are you around, please? Any other person I've not introduced? Could you kindly stand up so that you are seen? KICD, the host, eh? I was just assuming when we said sagas, they could have also stood up. KICD officials? Thank you very much. They're up there. These are the people hosting us. Now, this event is a stakeholder. Yes? Teachers. Teachers. I'm very sorry. I apologize for that. Asante. So, once again, welcome to this stakeholders engagement. It's organized and hosted by our cabinet secretary. So I just wanted to please read some ground rules. We're a sector of rules. You know, education is a sector of rules. When I read these rules, you may remember, maybe you recall the days you were in school. I know our students are told this every other day. But generally, we're a sector of rules. This, in the next few minutes, this will be covered live all over the country through 630, KBC, and TV47. So, almost all households in the country will be watching this over the TV. So please, we wanted some data, the way we carry ourselves around. The first ground rule is all phones should be either switched off or be put in silent mode. This is a kind request. We don't want any interruption. 2, participants are requested to be brief and to the point whenever raising issues. Clarity of thoughts and the way we present issues, please, let's be very brief. Number 3, we need to respect each other's opinion. When someone says something, just respect it. Respect. Yeah. Then, stakeholders are requested to raise their issues with decorum, respect, and use courteous language. For us in the education sector, language and how we talk and express ourselves
hiyo show tunaweza ipata vizuri, mimi napata profit.
and many of our students stay observing this. So please, let's have that. Avoid repetition of issues already raised by others. We are free in raising any constructive ideas.
Shot yangu inakaa profile. Hebu angalia shot hizi ni inakaa. Iko busy sana.
Participants will be given the floor by the moderator upon raising their hands.
Unaweza nitoa kidogo
Our moderator
nifundishe
for this
ile.
session is none other than our captain secretary. He is the chair of the moderator. And so we will give opportunities and we want to speak by show of hands.
Hebu toa huo demo anaona hapa.
And then participants are requested to be seated and minimize unnecessary movements. Again, we appeal to you, please. Be seated and minimize unnecessary movements. So with those rules and the deliverance, is now I have a meeting to hand over to our cabinet secretary now to take over from there. Very good, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DG, for that introduction. Good evening, everyone. From the list of the participants, I have noticed that almost each and every sector is represented here. That obviously goes to show how important the sector, the education sector is. Can you hear me? Is it working? The education sector is to all of us. Let me take this opportunity to thank all of you for coming and also to introduce. This has a bit of a challenge. One, two, check 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. It's on but not working. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. Check 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. One, two. 1, 2, 1, 2. Mamado. 1, 2.
the CEO, University Fund, Geoffrey Monari, and Dr. Riachi, the chairman, representing the chairman, KICD. Of course, the team is joined by their technical teams and other senior management officers from those various organizations, so that should there be an issue or a question that touches on those sectors, we can have comprehensive responses so that we are fully appraised. So thank you once again for making time to come, for accepting this invitation so that we can have a discussion on the education sector, which affects all of us. And today, we will limit our discussions to the competency-based curriculum, which is something that is of immediate concern to Kenyans. And we thought that it is a good time for us to have a discussion and to review, look at where we are, look at the milestones that we have covered, look at the challenges that we have in that area, and what solutions we have to those challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, as you might be aware, the competency-based education program was started in 2012. The team that was working on it started working on it 2012. And we had the first cohort under this program joining our schools in 2017. That cohort is now in grade 8 and will be joining grade 9 in January 2025. Prior to 2022, there was a lot of concern as to whether the competency-based curriculum was working. A number of stakeholders, including parents, had challenges understanding what it was all about or how it was being implemented, what their role was, what the outcomes were, and what they were required to do. Because of that, in 2023, our President, His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, set up a working party, the Presidential Working Party, to look into the CBC as a whole. And the team that was constituted, headed by Professor Mnavu, did go around the country to get views about CBC, and they discussed in detail about that particular program, taking into account a lot of your submissions and petitions. One of the points of reference, one of the TORs in that particular team was whether or not we should continue with CBC, which, as my principal secretary will tell you, worried a lot of people because we didn't know what the outcome was going to be. But 83% of Kenyans did indicate that CBC was a good program and it should be continued, but with a few tweaks here and there to make it more efficient, to make it more acceptable. 83%. The other question that was posed to Kenyans at that point was where what was then called junior secondary school would be domiciled. Junior secondary school runs from grade 7, 8, and 9. That is junior secondary school. A question was raised as whether it should be domiciled in primary schools or whether it should be domiciled in secondary schools. 93% of Kenyans and participants indicated and submitted that it should be domiciled in primary schools. And for good reason. One of which was that a child or a learner who is in standard 7 is still very young and needs to be with the parents. And junior secondary school, being grade 7, 8, and 9, if we were to move them to secondary schools, would require to do 2 classrooms instead of 1, or classrooms for 2 grades instead of classrooms for 1 grade. So in terms of economic sense and age and psychosocial requirements, it became necessary, or it was clear, that junior secondary school should be domiciled in primary schools. And I think progressively, we think, or the name has kept changing from junior secondary school to junior school, and then secondary school becomes senior school. Having reached that decision, it then required the government to come up with the infrastructure to ensure that the learners in grade 9 are properly taken care of. So, an assessment then was done by the Ministry of Education, and it was established that for us to host grade 9 in junior secondary school, in primary school, we required 16,000 classrooms to be built in order to accommodate the learners. Consequently, ladies and gentlemen, the government availed resources through its development partners, and we have so far done 11,000, or we're in the process of doing 11,000 classrooms. 11 billion shillings was availed to do 11,000 classrooms. The government also availed 6.8 billion Kenya shillings to the national government CDF to also do 6,800 classrooms in conjunction with the Ministry of Education. The construction of these classrooms started in August this year, and so far we have done close to 75–80% of those classrooms, and we intend to complete doing those classrooms close to January. In fact, I think we've done 14,000 combined, the ministry and CDF. We've done a combined number of about 14,500. We have about 15 or 2,000 classrooms to go. Now, having said that, the classrooms were not the only thing that was required. We were also required to provide books, which are done by KICD, who are hosting us today. And all the books for grade 9 were done and completed, and distribution of these books started on the 23rd of October 20, and distribution is ongoing. I think as we speak today, we are also at about 80% of distribution of those classroom, those books to schools. This is because the government provides books so that each child at a ratio of 1:1 per subject, so that parents are not disadvantaged or are not in any sort of anxiety with respect to the books. The third arm, or the third issue that needed to be dealt with, was the issue of teachers. And as at the beginning of this term, we had 46,000 teachers, and the COTSC is going to address that issue, who were interns, and they have since been converted to permanent and pensionable, and another 20,000 interns are in the process of being employed to cover that area of junior secondary school. So in a nutshell, with respect to grade 9, the government has put in place measures to ensure that come January 2025, there is a smooth transition of the almost 1.1 grade 8 students moving to grade 9 as seamlessly as possible. However, as in any particular transition, there could be challenges here and there, and as a ministry, we've put in place measures to ensure that where there are challenges, where we might find that there are issues to be dealt with, our teams in the fields are already well prepared to handle those challenges. So in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, with respect to the CBC, or the competency-based curriculum, we have done what as a government needs to be done to ensure that our learners are in school and they're not disadvantaged in any way. And that's why we thought we'd meet here today, have a discussion and answer any questions or any concerns that you might have, so that together we'll be able to ensure that our learners are not disadvantaged in any way come January 2025. In fact, in discussions with the National Treasury, we've agreed that the capitation for junior school, if possible, should be done before the opening of the schools on the 6th of January 2025. This is going to be able to ensure that the transition is made even that much more efficient than before. Our ministry has given instructions to all the head teachers on what portion of the capitation they are supposed to use to do the desks for these classrooms that are being done. In fact, as they are doing the classrooms, the desks are also being procured so that there is smooth transition, and when they go, they do not just get a classroom, they also get the desks for learning. So ladies and gentlemen, with respect to CBC, it is our position as a ministry that we are quite prepared to handle the transition, and we are quite prepared to handle any challenge that will come with respect to that transition come January 2025. Are we good? Thank you. I said the CEO of Kenya National Examination Council is also here. This year, we also undertook 2 serious examinations. We did the KPSEA that was successfully completed, and the Kenya KCSE that was also very well done and completed. There were a few challenges in it, but we were able to handle those challenges of 1 or 2 malpractices, and those who are found to be engaged in those malpractices are actually facing court cases as we speak, and we'll be dealing with that. The examinations marking is ongoing, and we will be releasing the results in January, in early January 2025. So in a nutshell, with respect to the basic education, we are in the process of ensuring that the reforms that were recommended by the Presidential Working Party are being implemented. We have also done a number of amendment bills to ensure that we amend the areas that had a bit of friction so that there is smooth collaboration between all the sectors to ensure that the implementation of this particular program is not hindered because of law. So that is also ongoing, and we are on course. Some of those bills will be coming before Parliament early next year once the Parliament resumes from recess. So that, in a nutshell, is where we are with respect to CBC or with respect to basic education. I'll stop there for now and request that the PS basic education will make a few remarks. Then thereafter, Dr. Masharia, the TSC CEO, will make a few remarks. Then we'll open up to plenary, then attend to whatever other issues that might arise, including maybe those that we've not touched on. PS.
Thank you very much, CS. Good evening. And thank you very much for all of us for finding time to be with us this evening. I think the CS has captured the essence of why we are here and the critical aspects of the things that has brought us here. The only thing I'll just do a quick recap of that journey that has brought us up to this point, where we have come from, where we are, and slightly looking at what we need to do as we go into the future. And as already mentioned, our first critical education reform post-independence came in 1985 when we transited to 844, and as a way in which, as a country at that time, we said we needed more practical-oriented education. And in the first few years, as at 1992, there was a first review for us to look at it. It came to our attention as Kenyans that there was overload on what we were learning and what we were giving our children. And therefore, we thought that there was need for us to relook at ourselves, and that is why we had a small review in 1992 on our education system. In 2009, again, Kenyans thought that we needed to reflect, and we did a summative evaluation of the 844 system, because we thought there was something that we needed to still improve, and therefore the journey continued. And as we are all aware, we gave ourselves a new constitution in 2010. And when we gave ourselves a constitution in 2010, post the constitution, we thought we needed to align so many things into the new constitution. And education was one of those aspects that needed alignment into the new constitution. And as we are all aware, then our minister then of education appointed two committees. One was led by Professor Some that looked at higher education and science and technology, and another committee was led by Professor Odhiambo, who looked at basic education. And that is where the critical journey that we are going through today critically started. Because Professor Odhiambo did and went around the country, and Kenyans then recommended that we totally needed to change our education system. And that is where we started this journey that we are in today. Because from there, among the things that Professor Odhiambo recommended was that we needed more to look not so much into how much knowledge we have accumulated and how much we can reproduce, but what we can do with the knowledge that we have acquired, and therefore looking at competencies and skills. And the concept of competence-based education came, and therefore the competence-based curriculum. And the whole structure that we are looking at today, the 2 years in preschool, the 6 years in primary school, 3 years in junior school, 3 years in senior school, and a minimum of 3 years in tertiary education came in as a recommendation from Professor Odhiambo. In 2014, 2015, 2016, then the implementation of some of those recommendations became critical. And in 2015 is when we started, and some of us who are here, including Zamburi, including Jegere, and quite a number of people who are at KICD, started a journey of doing a needs assessment. A needs assessment was done in 2014, 2015. In 2016, we had our first national conference that informed our way forward. And as already mentioned by CS, in 2017 now the critical journey started. And our first pilot was done in 2017. And out of the lessons learned from the first pilot that we did in 2017, in 2018 we did a national pilot. I'm giving this journey so that we can appreciate that CBC didn't just happen, that there was quite a thought process that was put into it. So in 2017, 2018, we did our final pilot, which was a national pilot. And in 2019 is when we did a rollout. at grade 3. And it is the same year that we did our first national summative assessment through the Kenya Early Years Assessment at grade 3, because we wanted to appreciate the results that we had already given ourselves through the pilot, and what we were thinking about it now that we were rolling out. And as we are aware, thereafter we have done quite a number of school-based assessment, up to what the CS said in 2022, we did our first Kenya Primary School Education Assessment, which was a summative assessment. And this summative assessment accounted for 40% of the assessment score for our primary school. 60% were done by our teachers in the school-based assessment. And one good thing that Njegere will tell us later is that when an analysis was done between the school-based assessment and the summative assessment, there was very close correlation between the two, meaning that our teachers were quite objective in the school-based assessment in our assessing our children. The CS has already talked about the anxiety that was there in 2022. We were doing the first CAPSEA. We needed to transit our children to junior school. There was a lot of questions as to whether our children were going to a secondary school, were they going or remaining in primary school. And that is why, as the CS said, the first thing that our president did upon swearing in on the 13th of September is that on the 29th of September, he created the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform so that we could be able to address the anxieties of Kenyans. On 3rd of August, the report was delivered to the president, and he directed the minister then to implement it immediately. And the implementation immediately from October, November, upon receiving that report, then started. And that is how we ended up now having our junior school in our primary schools. And thereafter, they did recommendation which the CEO will be telling us about rationalization and the issues that we needed to do immediately so that we could be able to implement and meet the expectations of Kenyans. So once again, I don't want to say so much, but what I want to say is that in that same 2022, we quickly, again, did guidelines on how we shall be able to deliver to our children in junior school. So once again, CS, I don't want to say so much, is about what do we do going forward. You have talked about in what happens in 2024. In July, the CEO, Kenya National Examination Council, will tell us that we did a pilot on the Kenya Junior Secondary School Education Assessment. In this same 2024, the CS has told us we are doing 16,000 classrooms. In this same year, 2024, we have done the textbooks that are needed by our children. In this same year, we have done guidelines on how we shall place our children in senior school. We have also done guidelines which will guide us on management of senior school. So these are the critical things, and these guidelines will be going to our stakeholders, who are the teachers and all of us, in January, so that we can validate these particular guidelines. So what happens in 2025? Because that is another very critical year for all of us. In 2025, as already mentioned, that is the year when we shall have had a full cycle of early years, that is ECD, the 2 years. We shall have done a full cycle of our primary school for 6 years, and we shall have done a full cycle of our junior school. It is the year that we shall be doing an assessment of the first 9 years. It is a year that our children will be making choices into the pathways that they want to go into. It is the year that our children will be prepared to transition to senior school. And it is also the same year that we shall be preparing our senior schools to receive our children to senior school. It is the same year that we shall have done adequate simulations to know how many of our children will be doing the STEM pathway, how many of our children will be doing social sciences, how many of our children will be doing arts and creatives. So this is the year, 2025, which is so critical to all of us, because the summation of what we have been doing in the last 9 years will be defined as we do the final transition within the basic education subsector. So at that particular point, then in November, we shall be doing the Kenya Junior School assessment. In December, we shall be doing placement to junior school. And in January 2026 is the critical year that we now transition our children, and actual transition will be happening. All these years we have been doing progression. We progressed from PP1, PP2 to grade 1. We progressed from grade 6 to grade 7. But now we are going to do an actual transition from one level now and one domiciling point of the junior school and primary school to our secondary schools, which will be senior schools. So it is so a critical year that will define all that we have been doing in competence-based education. And it is the year, therefore, that we have to work with our stakeholders to ensure that that transition will be smooth at grade 9 and later in grade 10. So CS, I don't want to go beyond that particular point. I just wanted to see the journey that we have covered so that the details on issues of teachers, the details on issues of curriculum, and the details on issues of assessment will be dealt with by our CEOs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, PS. That's a very good presentation, giving us the history of the progression, just to show that the government didn't wake up one morning and say, we are going to do CBC. It was a journey, well studied, well researched, teams went out, assessments were done, and this particular program then became necessary. I'll now give the opportunity to the CEO, TSC, to say one or two things on teachers.
Thank you, Waziri. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will start tonight by assuring the country that the Teachers Service Commission has fully prepared our teachers to transition our learners to grade 9 without a hitch. The peers and the minister have talked about the rest of the issues, so I'll very briefly restrict myself to what we have done with the teachers to ensure this preparedness. One, we know that our teachers are very well trained in our colleges and universities. And once a professional, in all professions anyway, you are tooled and skilled. And these skills we are given when we are trained and we are tooled, then assist you to adapt to changes even when they come. And the only thing that we are doing with our teachers is tweak it a little when we are retooling them because they are already trained. Let me talk about the implementation of the CBC by saying that TSC has recruited and deployed public primary school and junior school teachers, both at the internship programs and at the permanent and pensionable terms. the expected teacher requirement for grade 7 to 9, if we were to staff it adequately, is 149, 350 teachers. However, the government, through TSC, has recruited 76,928 teachers. And this makes 51.5% of the requirement. And what we should note here is that although we have that shortage, it is that in 1.5 years, the government has done 51.5% of the requirements in junior secondary. And this shows the resolve of government in trying to transit our learners through the CBC seamlessly. And therefore, the projected teacher shortage is estimated to be 72,422, which is 48.5%. So you can see we have done more than what we are missing. And if the government has done this in 1.5 years, then you can see that the government will be working very hard with the TSC at the forefront to ensure that the 48.5% is achieved in the shortest time possible. Now, the government has also provided funds to recruit and convert 46,000 teacher interns in primary, junior, and secondary school teachers to permanent and pensionable terms. And these teachers, of course, now, starting this January, will now transit to PNP and not the interns as they were before. Out of the 46,000 teacher interns, 39,550 teachers were recruited specifically for junior school and have now been turned into P&P. To further bridge this shortage at junior school, the TSC looked at the qualified primary school teachers, because we have qualified primary school teachers who went back to college after their P1 course. They have all the requisite requirements. 8,378 qualified primary school teachers have now been deployed to junior secondary to try and bridge this gap. The government went further and allocated TSC 4.8 billion to engage 20,000 additional intern teachers whom we have now recruited. We have given them letters, we have issued them letters, and will be in schools in January as we open our schools. So you can see that the total number of teachers now recruited and deployed to handle junior secondary is 76,928. And that's quite a substantive number in only 1.5 years. So this is aimed at responding to these needs in the junior secondary. So after recruiting, the other thing that the TSC or the government has done through TSC is retooling of teachers. As I have explained, our teachers are very well trained and they are tooled and skilled. In fact, in the past you saw, even during the COVID epidemic or when we have had a few challenges here and there, our teachers adapt to change because they are very well trained. However, the government felt this is a new reform. And so TSC was given money to retool these teachers in curriculum-based, competence-based curriculum and competency-based assessment. I think we have the CEO, Nick, he can talk about that. And so we have been retooling our teachers on these two since 2019 on a regular basis. And just to give you a summary of this, about retooling our teachers in the new CBC and the CBA, between April 2019 to September 2021, we had trained a total of 229, 292 teachers, just to ensure that we have this seamless transition as we adopted the CBC. Now, going to junior secondary, the overall total number of teachers retooled between May and November, just the other day, 2024, is 60,642. The last training was conducted in November this year, specifically to prepare teachers for transitioning learners to grade 9. That's just a short snapshot of what we have done to teachers to ensure this seamless transition. There have been challenges, of course, like in all new systems. You must have teething problems, and this is what we are trying to mitigate through what I have said. So what we have also done further to ensure that we mitigate these issues that are coming up, one is the deployment of qualified primary school teachers to junior school. So any teacher, we have opened a portal actually, it's continuously there, so that any teacher who gets the requisite grades, comes from the university or college, was previously a P1 and now is a graduate with the required qualifications, we immediately transfer them to junior secondary. The other mitigation is that we have been working very closely with the National Treasury to ensure that we get funding. And like you have seen in the 1.5 years, what has happened. This we are continuing to do in the sector and as TSC so that we get the funding to close this gap. We have also come with an innovation, and I'm saying this knowing too well that no technology can actually replace a teacher in class. However, we are a developing country. So we have come up with live streaming of lessons where we have a satellite school, a principal school, and then a satellite schools, so that we have one principal school that can teach, or the lessons are live streamed in like 5 or 4 other schools, just to try and make sure that learners do not stay without a teacher. We have also been collaborating because, as you know, one of the mandate of the Commission is to advise national government on the requirements of teachers. We have been working very, very closely with the Ministry of Education and universities to train teachers in the new learning areas so that as we progress, we get teachers in these new learning areas. We are also undertaking teacher induction, mentorship, and coaching to manage change, because most of these issues we are hearing really in junior secondary in regard to our teachers is just the change thing. I mean, we want to do things like they were always done, and change usually is a bit difficult. So we are inducting our teachers, we are mentoring them, we are coaching them so that they can adopt to this change and we move on. We are also, lastly, this current recruitment of the 20,000 intern teachers that we have just concluded, and these teachers you report in January, what we have done is prioritize the recruitment of science teachers, because as you know, there have been comments here and there that we have been recruiting only arts teachers. So this recruitment prioritized the recruitment of science teachers so that these children can have a wide array, and not only science teachers, but also technical subjects, so that they have a wide array of the new learning areas. And so in a nutshell, that is what we have done, and we are working very hard to ensure that we get there and that these learners are transited seamlessly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you very much. It's therefore clear to me that even at TSC, everything possible is being done to ensure that we have enough teachers. Where we do not have the right number, we are retooling them, we are training them, we are ensuring that there is a right number to ensure that the grade 9, as a transition, there will be somebody teaching them, that they are not going to be in school without teachers. The government is doing everything possible including putting in lots of money to ensure that 51% of teachers are employed within 1.5 years, the highest number that has ever been employed in this country within that specific period. And in fact, I realized that the effect of that was that in 2023, 2022, 2023, because of that employment, the application for the education program in our universities rose tremendously. I think 33% of all the students that were admitted to universities in 2023-2024 financial year, academic year, were in education. So it shows that there is something that is happening in that sector. We have a few more minutes before plenary. Let me give Dr. Njengere, the KNC CEO, a chance to say a word or two, and then KICD, then we move to plenary so that we can deal with the burning issues. Briefly.
Okay, thank you very much, CS. I think for me, from NEC, I'll speak to the critical milestones that we have navigated. As the PS explained, when the rollout of the CBC started in 2017, that is during the pilot, NEC received a basic education curriculum framework, and in 2018, NEC came up with a competency-based assessment framework. And maybe what we need to state is that this is the first time in this country, CS, and stakeholders, that any change in our basic education was preceded by a framework. In the 844 and in the previous system we had, we didn't have a framework. So in this case, KICD had a basic education curriculum framework, and NEC used that framework to develop the assessment framework. Then come 2018, as KICD was concluding the national pilot, NEC also did its own pilot. So the grade 3 monitoring learner progression was preceded by a pilot. And I think this is also the first time in this country that assessments were preceded by a pilot. And every other subsequent assessment, whether it is KIPSEA or the Kenya Junior that we are waiting to do next year, as the PS said, they were based on a pilot. Now there is something that the PS said about the validity and reliability of the school-based assessments. And Bwana Nzioka is here. What I want to disabuse, and which speaks to, I don't know what we need to do as a country, believing in ourselves and bridging the trust deficit that I don't know where it came from. We seem to have an issue in trusting teachers as professionals. So there was this fear that if we ask teachers to administer the school-based assessments without the presence of a supervisor, an invigilator, and a police officer, are they going to be professional? Are they going to be objective? And from 2019, every year, we conduct these school-based assessments. And I can assure you from NEC that we get a normal curve. A normal curve which shows that the teachers are very objective and very professional. So I think we also need to encourage and motivate the teachers by seeding from this attack, which is not based on facts, that teachers might. So once you tell a professional that I fear you are going to do the wrong thing, I don't know what you're doing to that professional. So I think it's time for us to encouraging the teachers to do what they are doing, and so far they have done a very good job. The next issue is about what PS mentioned, about the junior school assessment, which will be done next year for the summative, But so far, the children who are in grade 8 and moving to grade 9 next month, they have already done their SBAs in grade 7 and grade 8, which means that the assessment they'll be sitting for in grade 9, end of grade 9 next year, is not going to have the same stakes that KCPE used to have, because KCPE, the final assessment used to account for 100% of your marks. But this time round, they have already done their SBA in grade 7. They have done their SBA in grade 8. So actually we can almost start to see what these children are likely, how they are likely to perform, even as they wait to sit for their summative assessments. And as the PS said, we also have a questionnaire that we are going to be administering, because we've also been reducing the opportunities for these children based on purely achievement tests. So we also want to explore both their interests and their other personal attributes that will speak to the kind of track and pathway that they will pursue in senior school. And we've been having a meeting with the junior school teachers in Naivasha. So we are orienting them on how those, all those assessments will be done, the questionnaires, and I'm sure next year by around March, as the PS promised, we are going to have a very seamless process of how that transition is going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ari. Professor, one or two.
Thank you very much, our Cabinet Secretary, and all our delegates, protocol observed. Good evening. I want to welcome all of us to the Institute. You can see we have just a brand new auditorium. You're the first people to sit on it. Karibuni sana. CS, thank you very much for organizing this so that we can speak to competency-based education. And allow me to reiterate the first point, that we are implementing competency-based education where competency-based curriculum is just one of the pillars. The other pillars are competency-based pedagogy, which Dr. Nancy Macharia has eloquently talked about. We have competency-based assessment, that's where Dr. Njegere comes in, and we have competency-based infrastructure, where the ministry comes in. But we acknowledge that the root is the curriculum. So without repeating, I want to just outline a few issues that I have seen recently as questions about competency-based education. And the first thing, CS, is to let Kenyans know that there's a philosophy, a global philosophy, well-researched, well corrected out of practice, that underpins competency-based education. And without time to elaborate, allow me to say this is a pragmatist philosophy, and it speaks to 5 issues. One is interest. The fact that a curriculum should be flexible enough to allow learners to pursue their areas of potential and interest. 2 is to infuse as much practicality as possible in our learning. Thirdly is to reiterate the question of values, which I know members of the faith-based society here will confirm we have talked about from inception. And finally, to ask the question of what is the utility of an education we are offering our learners, to them as individuals and also to the country. The second thing to reiterate, colleagues, is that the structure that informs competency-based education at basic level is also well grounded in cognitive developmental psychology. That's why we have 2 years to offer children an opportunity to interact at pre-primary school level, 6 years to give them an opportunity to socialize, especially on the areas of literacy, numeracy, and language. 3 years of junior school to offer learners an opportunity to adventure, to discover their potential, and then 3 years to take a pathway where they can now get more into the depth. And CS allow me to reiterate to Kenyans that at the time we were reforming the curriculum, it was discovered that we were the only country in the East African region that were keeping children in primary school for 8 years. Globally, and this table is on the Odhiambo Task Force report, if you look at some of the countries that we frequently benchmark with, we were the only country keeping learners in school for 8 years. And so it was necessary that we align ourselves to what the rest of the world was doing. And Dr. Jingere would have mentioned his pet subject. The East African Community Protocol also adopted CBE as the default curriculum and agreed in principle, and we are signatories, that no country should keep learners in school beyond 7 years. PS allow me to speak to rationalization. The Presidential Working Party, as the PS mentioned, was informed by views of Kenyans, and I'm happy Professor Odote has just arrived. So we have a member of the Presidential Working Party who was very critical, especially in the curriculum pillar, and they recommended that we should not have more than 5 learning areas at pre-primary school, not more than 7 learning areas in lower primary, not more than 8 learning areas at upper primary, and not more than 9 at junior, and of course not more than 7. Again, the Presidential Party recommendations were very well informed, and we responded immediately as an institute. We have revised the curriculum designs that were on at that time according to the recommendations of the Working Party. And as the PS has said, we have actually proceeded to evaluate curriculum support materials in terms of print materials and digital materials, and in particular, the print materials have been distributed to schools. CS, Dr. Jagere has talked about us believing in ourselves as a country. I want to assure the country that we are just among 3 that I know in the world that distributes textbooks to schools, to their learners in all learning areas on a 1-to-1 ratio. And that as we speak today, 80% of grade 9 books have already been distributed, is something we should be thanking the country for. At some point, we were talking about a deficit. Today, sometimes CS, you hear them talk about an oversupply. And in junior school in particular, CS and PS have graciously accepted that for every learning area, we distribute 2 titles, because then we are opening the spectrum of the teachers. The CBC is based on a globally acknowledged curriculum reform cycle. We reform a cycle at the end of basic education, and we review at the end of every 5 years according to the UNESCO standards. So finally, the only thing I want to talk about is that, yes, the curriculum reform in basic education has also been reflected in teacher education. So as we speak today, we have transited, CS an extremely big milestone in this country, and I believe we are the first in Africa, I mean East Africa as well, that I'm sure about, that we have transited all the training level now to diploma. We no longer have people who are going to get a certificate to be able to teach. You have to get a diploma to teach at pre-primary, primary, and even secondary level. And that is also consistent because education specialists will tell you at a certificate level, globally you are expected to be only a teacher assistant and not a full-fledged teacher. And so the country has made huge progress in this direction. Can I close CS by saying that this country has spent, up to date from 2018, 51 billion shillings on textbooks. And as we talk today, 47 billion has been paid to publishers, and the chairman of the Publishers Association is here. They will confirm that for the books that they have delivered, which we have confirmed have reached school, we have made all the payment. Thank you very much, CS.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much. So members, as you can see, there is teamwork, and there is a clear indication of the teams working together from TSC to the ministry, to NEC, to the curriculum, and things have been thought through, whether it is the curriculum, whether it is the resources, whether it is the teachers, whether it is the books, whether it is the assessment in the exams. There is a team and there is a cohesiveness of how this is being done. It cannot be gainsaid that in this country, for instance, it is the only country, as far as we know, that is spending over 30% of its budget in the education sector. The UNESCO recommendation is an expenditure of between 4 and 20%. We are at 27% last we checked. And that is a commitment from the government that they want to ensure, or we want to ensure, that our education system is of an international standard. And we are doing everything possible to ensure that we do not drop the ball. I want to open up this now to the plenary for questions or comments or recommendations, suggestions, so that we can together continue refining this sector. What is really critical for us is that we must have an education sector that is completely hygienic and that we can trust. So I'll open up the team with microphones. Raise your hand. We'll take about 3 questions at a time, and then we'll move from there.
Mheshimiwa Waziri, thank you for your presentation, PS and CEO of TSC. I wanted to start by throwing some few stones, but I've disarmed because I had issues with the books and also with it, but on teachers you have done quite well. That one is actually something that is obvious. It is there to be seen by every Kenyan. But my concern, Honorable Minister, is, you know, the religious sector plays a very critical role as a key stakeholder in education. And in this meeting today, unfortunately, I think we are very few of us here. I just saw other 2 people apart from myself. And that shows, I don't know whether it is how the program was arranged, but it's very, very key that we work together as a country to address the challenges that we have. Mheshimiwa, one thing about CBC is quite an expensive endeavor. It's expensive to parents, and it also, in a way, disadvantages certain section of the communities. I have, for example, you know, in the current education system, the parent does more than the child, because the kind of the homework the children are given to go and print that, bring that, I can imagine my father, my mother, if I was a child today, to be told to print certain things at home in my rural village, where the printers are not available, there are no smartphones, there is no internet. What exactly are those children going to do? Because if we move that way, then it seems that the education is only going to be for those who are privileged to be members of the society who can actually access those. The second aspect of discrimination in this education system, I can say, I have never been told to print a picture of a lady milking a cow. I can only see print some pictures of a swimming pool, print pictures of cars, some people have never seen cars. Our children in certain areas of this country have not seen the cars. So you can just imagine that situation. If we continue that way, I think we need to do something extraordinary. And my concern, again, is about the construction of classrooms. It is something very good. But why do you divide the resources, the little resources that you have? Instead of the ministry implementing the project, you divide and then decide this amount to be taken by CDF for the CDF to do the same. Don't you find that it's actually, we may be faced with challenges of accountability and also achieving the objectives of the ministry by deliberately giving someone else to do something that you could have actually done and finalized it? Thank you.
Thank you. Because of the numbers, we're going to have to limit the questions per person, maybe to a maximum of 2. Can we take that one there, lady in red? And please note the questions because I'll be having some of you respond to them.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I wish first to appreciate the government's efforts to ensure that CBC is a success in this country. I represent Kenya Private Schools Association, and my question is, we as Kenya Private Schools Association, we do have different cadres of schools, and we have schools that do not have the financial muscle, especially to provide for children in terms of learning resources and materials. My question is it possible for the government to partner with us as private schools to offer these textbooks as the government distributes these schools to the public schools so that our schools can access these schools at a subsidized rate? The second question is, we have some of our schools that are ready to offer the 3 pathways, that is at senior school. And in some cases, we may be strained in terms of resources. For example, a pathway like arts and sports. Can we also have a modality that we can work together with the government to be able to access their resources? Thank you.
Thank you. The last one up there.
Thank you. Thank you very much, CS. I come from civil society, and our biggest concern about the implementation of CBC is in dropout rates. CS, the previous program, which was the 844, at least the first major transition was being experienced when the child was 14 years. That is when they were going to secondary school. Right now, we are looking at 12-year-olds that want to transition to junior secondary school, and there is a different level of things. There is a whole set of uniform, CS. There is a whole set of school fees. I am aware that for you to access a junior secondary school in Nairobi, you have to pay 10,000 shillings or 15,000 shillings. That is fact from the ground. We cannot have 12-year-olds as dropouts in this country. We want an assurance from you tonight that transiting to junior school is cost-free. When CBC was being introduced, the civil society supported CBC on account of its acclamation that the transition is going to be free, including free from the examination issues where children were being ranked according to their grades. But CBC was promising us as a country that there is not going to be dropouts at this rate. If you look at the structure of CBC, 2 years at preschool, still there is an inconvenience. Transitioning from nursery school in this country to grade 1, there is a hiccup there. So we lose about 20% of those children. Some of them don't know where to go. Then after 6 years again, CS, we are looking at another transition. And later, at another 3 years, we will still be looking at another transition. So I think for us as civil society, the biggest thing for us is about policy guidance. What is the ministry saying about this transition? Is it cost-free, as we had been promised as before? And I think the other issue today is about accountability on capitation. I want to confess that the government is doing very well on the construction of classes. I live near a primary school, and I've already witnessed actually 8 classes are coming up. That is very good. And the account we have heard from Dr. Nancy and the issues about NEC, really good progress coming up there. How about capitation? When we hear that junior school, the capitation is going to be 15,000, only to confirm from the heads of schools that they receive 4,000 Kenya shillings, I think there is an accountability issue about capitation. Because what does it mean when government does not give the right capitation? It means levies. The world over, there is no big barrier to education than levies. So I think those are my 2 issues, CS. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet. We will start with the first question. The gentleman who wanted to throw some stones, but he didn't find them. That's very good. Let's ask that the PS, you can take those questions, and then Dr. Njengele will deal with the issues relating to the cost, but you deal with that one first for the first
Thank you very much.
question.
I want to thank the chair for the areas that he has raised, I want to assure you that on invitations, we invited the whole cross-section of our colleagues in the religious sector, including the Interreligious Council. So maybe they are still on their way, but we did invite all of us because we know the role that the religious community is doing in our schools. As sponsors, as spiritual guides, as people who support us, mainly on the mental stages. I remember when we were in the formative stage of CBC, you did so much work on value-based education and why we needed to have value-based education. I would request Prof at some point to talk about parental empowerment and engagement. Because what we are really doing is that we would want to have all of us participate in the growth of our children. And that's why when we request that you work with your child through some of the homework that we do give, then we are doing that so that you can have a closer relationship. You have a closer engagement with the child. But on issues of the type of homework that we gave, what we ask to be printed, what I would ask Professor Ongondo to engage on that one. On construction of classrooms, what we are doing is that we are partnering with the National Government Constituency Development Fund because it is one of our biggest partners when it comes to issues education. The biggest, almost 80% of the resources that go to CDF is used in issues related to education, and that's why we are partnering with them. But as the CS said, as Ministry of Education, working with our development partners, we are doing and we have done 11,000 classrooms. Our colleagues, the MPs, are doing 6,800. They have already done 3,000. So as we talk today, we have done 14,000 classrooms through that partnership. And we would want to continue engaging and building on trust and the way in which we would want to work so that we can move forward. On Kenya Private Schools Association, Mudhoni will tell you when we were having the steering committee, the first one, on issues of instructional materials, we agreed that private schools will give us their requirements and that they will get books at cost. We are still there as government. If you give us your numbers, we work with ourselves, we shall make sure that you will get books at the same cost that we give to our public schools, because all these are our children. Let's work together and we shall ensure that the books that is produced will be paid for through a framework, and the children in private schools will get it at the same cost that we are giving to our children in public schools. That still stands, and that commitment by government is still there. The last one is on what Mudhoni has said on issues of dropout and progression. And it is good, Bwana Nzioka is here, who is the chair of the Kenya Primary School Aids Association. And you know, when people break the law, and it's good our CS is a lawyer, and he will put it as is that primary education, once you transition to our primary schools, and as per the Constitution, Article 53, I think, is that we are supposed to provide free and compulsory basic education, and mainly primary education. And there should be no fees charged at any point in time. Even when we were transitioning the first group of CAPSEA from grade 6 to grade 7, we said children should use the uniforms that they did have in their primary schools. It is still our stand, and it is still commitment of government, that even if we change uniforms, we should give time to parents to transition to the new uniform at the time that they were to buy new uniforms. It should not be that you transition, and even if you bought uniform when you are at grade 6, that when you go to grade 7, you buy new ones. It should be said that there is transition time, but there should not be any fees. And I'm sure CS will still emphasize on this particular issue. It is cost-free. Every progression, until that time when now we move from junior school to secondary school, then there will be certain fees that have been agreed on as by claim memorial report by that time. Until that changes, that is the situation. On capitation, we are working very closely with our colleagues at the Treasury. We know that the fiscal space that is there, the challenges that we are facing, but we commit ourselves to our schools that capitation at 22,224 should be that. At 15,043, that is what we should transmit to our junior school. At 1,420 is what we should give, because that is a commitment that we have made to our children, and it is our responsibility to ensure that is done. Let me request Professor Ngondo before Njegere comes in.
Thank you very much, PS, and thank you for that question. Let me start by saying that the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development has developed a book on parental empowerment and engagement, and I'll give you a copy after this in English and translate. There are 3 critical people in any learning endeavor. There's the child themselves, there's the teacher, and there's the parent. And the PS gave us a journey on how we ended up at CBE. If you were to look at the previous commission, starting with even others before McKay, like Gachathi and Kamunge, most emphasized in the Douglas Odhiambo Commission, one of the serious gaps in our education was the lack of serious engagement between the parent and their children's learning. The curriculum is arranged in such a way that a parent is encouraged to show as much interest as possible in the learning of their children. The assignments that are prescribed in the curriculum designs and even in the textbooks are not anything that any ordinary parent cannot speak to and cannot provide. For example, we shall ask your child that with the help of their parent, can you draw a family tree? That is an assignment that speaks to the parent. Some parents say they don't know. You say, look, with the help of your parent or guardian, walk through the kitchen or the sitting space and identify items that can potentially cause harm. That can only be done in the home and the parent. But most critically, we want you to have sufficient interest to go to school and raise a concern with the teachers if an unreasonable assignment is given. For example, we have no place in the curriculum designs that will ask a parent to print anything or even to take pictures. We have what are called suggested learning experiences, which are diverse, so that learners from any corner of the country can participate in any other activity that will contribute to the realization of the expected learning outcome. So mzee mwenzangu, tembea shuleni, next time mtu amekuambia print ngamia and you live in Homa Bay where we don't have them, say, mwalimu, I don't think this is very reasonable. Parents don't do that. They come out to complain to the teachers. We are encouraging you to go and show interest in what the children are doing. Asante sana.
Thank you. Doctor, you have something to add?
I think on the issue of cost, at the beginning, when the rollout was happening, there could have been cases of costs which were based on either they had not quite known what to do, or the experience of high stakes, where someone maybe was assuming that if I buy the item, then maybe the score will contribute to something else at the end of the day. But I think largely this has now settled. And I'll also ask Anne, I think Anne Gatia, yes, she will speak to what we are doing with assessments to make sure that we provide options. So that if we give a task and we think that maybe it could create a challenge of the cost, we give options so that the learning outcome will still be the same, but the materials that they use do not make that experience expensive. I also want to speak to the question of transition, Muthoni. I think largely we could say if there are pockets of children still dropping out, it is not at the same scope as used to happen with this other system. Because you would see, for example, when we administer KCPE, you would have administered to about 1-point-something million children. But by the time they sit KCSE, they have gone down to 800,000. Now, when you look at the numbers, the population that start for KIPSEA, which is now in grade 8, the population was 1.2-something million, and the population in grade 8 is still 1.2-something. So the numbers that have dropped out, yes, could be there, but it's not as large as used to happen with the other systems. So CS, you allow, I would ask Anne to just speak to that issue.
Quickly, Anne.
Thank you so much. In terms of assessments and what we are doing to make sure that the costs are not very high, one of the things is that we are uploading the assessments, the portal, and giving options so that the schools can actually download that onto the tablets or even onto the any digital devices, and then the students use the books to actually write, so they do not have to print. The other thing, as we design the questions, we are very careful, and in each of the questions, we are focusing on improvisation. So we are asking that the teachers, the parents, to improvise what is locally available. For example, we give a question on sources of water. We are asking that use what is locally available within your environment. So most of the things we are not asking them to buy. If we are coming to practicals, we are telling them improvise. If they are doing cookery, we are asking them even to share the ingredients so that you don't have to bring so many ingredients per learner, because all that is necessary is for the learners to acquire that particular skill. Again, in terms of the questions that we are giving, we are saying that let the teacher encourage the group work, so that sometimes you don't also have to do the practical as an individual, which will raise the cost. So most of the times we are saying, let us improvise, let us use the locally available materials. You don't have to buy. If we are asking you to clean shoes, you can clean just one shoe. You don't have to clean two. Thank you.
Thank you, and that is why the teachers are being retooled, so that part of the training that they are being put through is to ensure that if you are doing a class and you want one chicken, you don't tell all the 40 students to come with 40 chickens. That's why they are being taken through this training, so that they are able to use maybe a picture of a chicken or something like that. And to Muthoni's question of teachers who are charging or who are levying some fees, there is no provision, there is no policy from government that allows this to happen. And where this is brought to our attention, action is being taken against those teachers. I know previously there was an issue relating to who then disciplines this teacher with respect to maybe mismanagement of resources, and these are the issues that we were dealing with respect to the amendments of the acts to ensure that there is a proper coordination between TSC and the ministry to ensure that the resources that we give to these schools are properly utilized, and if somebody is misusing them, they will then face the law. And in fact, the latest circular from government is that there's going to be thorough and serious auditing of all the capitation that is released to schools in accordance with the Public Finance Act 2012. And there is going to be issues relating to if there is incapacity, then we'll see how to group certain schools together, then they have somebody handling that auditing to ensure that we do not have resources of capitation of whatever nature going to schools and people misusing them because they know there is nobody who is going to follow them, or there is a conflict as to who are they answerable to. So that has been aligned in the amendments that we are bringing to Parliament, and it's not going to be business as usual. But there is no policy, including the issue of students moving from one school to another where head teachers are charging 10,000, 15,000. There is no requirement from the government that there should be anybody charging, and if that is brought to our attention, we will take action. Thank you. We'll take the next questions, and because of time, let's take about 6 so that when we respond them, we cover as many as possible. Please, the ladies.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CS. Teacher Polycarp, I'm a CBC champion, and one of the people who believe that at the end of it all, our learners will get what they want. The narrative that we were using during the training in 2017 about comparing a monkey and a fish, we are saying we can't compare the two when it comes to swimming and when they come to climbing the tree. And as we move on, that narrative is being watered down, and that's why I want to ask Dr. Jigere. He has just said that he's going to the grade 9, grade 8, have already covered something. Can he come up clear to us how many marks are we hoping for the learners to get in the final test that is coming in November? So that's the first question. And the second question goes to Professor. Just 8 hours ago, they posted the books that the learners, the parents, in fact, they put it very clear saying, dear parents, this is what you are supposed to do. And when I went through that, I've realized we don't have books that have been approved for grade 5 to 8. We only have grade 1, PP1 to grade 4, and then grade 9. So what are we going to use as teachers to facilitate learning in grade 5 to 8? Thank you.
Thank you, Polycarp. Next.
Maybe I go next. My name is Ruga Eval from TV47. Questions coming through our feed. Is the government planning to make JSS schools standalone? Second question, how is the government dealing with corruption in junior secondary schools? Then to KICD, some books are said to have wrong content. How is KICD preparing to solve this? Then for the last 2 years, JSS teachers have been attending retooling, studying the same content. How is KICD planning to handle this? Maybe one last question. It's the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with TSC Kenya, took P1 teachers back to college to upgrade in readiness for CBC curriculum. Why did you abandon them in darkness without any employment? Verbatim.
Thank you. We allowed you many because they are coming from stakeholders and you're hosting us. Thank you very much. Next.
Thank you, Waziri. Thank you, Waziri. I want to commend you and your team, PS, and the rest of the team in the ministry I think you are doing a good job of handling a crisis that was handed over to you. And we are happy that there is progress. I also have to say that we have submitted to your office a memorandum with a number of proposals that slightly differ with the proposed way forward, but I won't bring them here. I am still looking forward to come in to share the facts and figures behind those thoughts that we shared with you. And I just want to say this, that I think at some point we abandoned the CBC framework. And that happened when we rushed the implementation before we had a clear plan. And now because of that, we have had to manage crises at all levels. And I think that eventually we will have equilibrium in the sector, because CBC is good, and I am a supporter, and I hope to continue supporting it. We will eventually have an equilibrium when we go back, we find our way back to the framework as it was designed. There are a few things there that may now not hold, but I know that that framework does not have the word domicile. That whole document does not have the word domicile. And the reason it doesn't have domicile is because the conversations that went on had a reason why certain institutions were envisaged along the way. So you are handed a crisis, you're doing a good job of managing it, but find a way of taking us back to the framework of the CBC.
Thank you for those comments.
Ladies first?
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Claire from VVOB. We are a partner of the Ministry of Education to support with the CBC reforms, especially through our co-implementation with KEMI, Semastea, and KICD. So my question tonight is around the role. So we can all agree that the school leaders play a vital role in preparing and encouraging a conducive environment, especially in time of change and transitions. So I would like to know what are the plans of the ministry to prepare and train and encourage the school leaders of the senior school for the transition in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Claire. Next.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tony Kemuri. I'm a parent. And Bwana CS, my concern is one, that why has it taken the government that long to ensure that parents understand the importance of CBC vis-a-vis the 844 system? Because when the parent is left behind, and that is why we are finding all this confusion, because like what we did in the last time when we were promulgating our constitution, is that we did civic education. I thought that this is a very important pillar that we ought to have carried out the civic education to the parents to tell them the importance of what the good brains that are sat in the various forums to tell us how important it is to have CBC vis-a-vis the 844 system. I, as a parent, because I'm hands-on, I will tell everybody and every Kenyan that CBC compared to 844 is the best. Because our children will be based on their competencies, and each and every person will be tested depending on their ability to learn and understand. That is number one. Number two, what is the ministry doing to ensure that we have equity in education in all corners of this country? Like in our constitution, we have assaults, we have equalization funds. What is the government doing to ensure that we have equity in all our learning institutions across the country, so that at least we don't have kids that are privileged than others in some areas? The last one, as I sit down, is that when we are testing our children, we have exceeding expectations. Previously, we had an A of 90 marks. we had still the same, on the same level, from 79 to 90. So these exceeding expectation as a parent, I'm wondering, when my child will be transitioning to the senior school, what exceeding expectation to the testing people will he have? How do I know that my child has gotten the concept? What needed to be taught? And what is the mark? It is exceeding expectation, but from which level to what level? Exceeding expectation from where to where? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony. All right, I think we can take those. Oh, you are on your feet. Please proceed.
Thank you, CS. My name is Festus from Parklands Baptist School. My first question is about learners transition from grade 9 to grade 10. We understand that the professor talked about the learner's interest. So my question is, which criteria will be used for the learners to be placed in that is senior school? Of course, with the 3 pathways, will there be like the cluster points? For you to undertake this pathway, you must attain this number of the points. Then number 2, it's a feedback that rationalization was done, but still you realize that the designs are a bit wide. For the teachers to be able to cover those designs within the academic year, you realize that it is a bit difficult because we are trying to make learning to be more practical and engaging. So what is it that is going to be done so that now that content can be reduced to be able to cover within the academic year? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take those for now, then we can come back, time allowing. Polycarp, who will take Polycarp's question, I think is directed at you, Professor. You can handle both. Both the issue of grade 8 that have covered something. I think that is for Njengele to answer. You would answer the question on the books that are missing on grade, I think 5 to 8. 1 to 4 is available and 9. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, CS. Thank you, Polycarp. I'm sure you will agree with me that there are books on all these learning areas in school. What you are probably asking for are books in the rationalized learning areas. Rationalization was done, new curriculum designs developed, evaluation took place in April, August, and December, and the books are now ready for distribution for the rationalized learning areas. You will start seeing them arriving in schools in January, and of course for the open market, they'll be available. Let me assure the country looking at you in the eyes, there is no book with wrong content. The content is drawn from the curriculum designs. The curriculum designs are developed by practicing teachers, and Madam Masharia Daktari has been very gracious that every time we call upon her to release teachers, develop the curriculum, they are done for those levels. The books are evaluated by experienced, vetted teachers. So it would be extremely unthinkable, CS, that a teacher would write content that is not right when they have been doing this forever. If you come across content in a book approved by the institute that you consider wrong, please let us know immediately. This could be very expensive to publishers because we withdraw the book from them. CS, allow me to speak to the question of basic education curriculum framework, not having the word domiciling. That's coming from a seasoned educator, my brother Banamanyasa. And you've said it very correctly that the basic education framework, like the curriculum itself, is not a static document. Domiciling was only relevant to the proposal to have these learners utilize the primary school spaces. But you will agree with me, Banamanyasa, because I know you read. If there's any curriculum in the world that has taken all the time stipulated in a cycle to implement it is the competency-based curriculum. Because as you are aware, the first proposal to specifically go to CBC was made in 2012. We are implementing this curriculum in a phase-in, phase-out manner. And what challenges we could be facing are not really just unique to the new curriculum. There would be challenges that any other African countries are struggling with. There's a last one, CS, which is relevant so that I don't come again. Why has it taken us long to educate parents? We started educating or talking to parents immediately the curriculum reform journey started. The whole sector is aware of the county engagements that again involved the whole sector. But I am really happy that now you see more interest of the parents than we had before. Some people have told us openly that they thought this CBC thing was a passing wind. Until now they realize it is here that they are taking it on. So please continue showing that interest, and I'm even happy that you are here. There's a final one, CS, on rationalization, where they talk about the curriculum designs being too wide to be implemented in a year. Again, this is debatable. Thank you, my brother from Parklands. Some schools and some teachers report covering the curriculum earlier than others. The only thing that will help properly is good planning at school level now. That, yes, you have this to cover, and do all the schools or most schools report that large content in that curriculum so that we deal with it. But feedback is appreciated, and where this is confirmed, as I've always repeatedly said, the curriculum is not cast on stone. This can still be looked at and reviewed at the 4th year cycle. Thank you very much, CS.
Dr. Njengele, there's quite a number. What grade 8 have covered. What is going to be assessed, and the issue of exceeding expectation, what are the ranges?
Thank you, CS. I think I would say that the 2 or the 3 questions are all covered in the competency-based assessment framework. And in assessment, on the question of validity, the competency-based assessment will have a higher content validity than the assessments we've been doing under the 844. Because the learners do the school-based assessments every year, and then they sit for the summative. But in the current system, they only have one exam, and therefore the content validity is usually a bit of a challenge. Now, to respond directly to your question, the grade 9 assessment will be cumulated from the grade 7 SBA, the grade 8 SBA, and the summative assessment they will sit for at the end of the year. So the summative assessment will account for 60%. Then the school-based assessments will account for 40%. Our desire would have been the other way around. But because of what I mentioned at the beginning, the trust deficit, that is where we are having the summative accounting for 60%. I pray and hope for the day when we will have the summative accounting for 40% and the school-based assessment accounting for 60%. Because that's the way it should be. We should trust the teacher as the professional, just like we trust doctors with our children when they go in there. We should also trust the teachers that they can do a professional job. The next question around how we are going to report the junior school, it is informed by the 3 parameters that we have created in the framework. The first is the purpose. Why are we assessing at junior school? Junior school is ideally not an exit level. It is preparing the learner to choose the pathways and tracks in senior school. So the achievement side of it is not like the KCPE or the KCSE. And therefore, the purpose there is informing the tools and the mode that we are using. Now, reporting is where we have to be very careful because the stakes can start going up. And if the stakes go up, then we'll be back to the problems we have with drilling learners and, all the, and I'm sure Zioka knows some of the things they do. So we will balance the qualitative and the quantitative reporting. Because we also want to make sure that if this child leaves Kenya and goes to another country, that country will be able to equate that report to their system. So there will be a quantitative reporting which will be based on an 8-level scale. So we will break down the qualitative reporting from below to exceeding expectations into 8 levels, and we will provide a quantitative value so that it can be equated to what happens in other countries. I hope I've responded.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nancy. I'd like you to take a few, the ones of studying the same things, P1 teachers that you have abandoned. And any other that you recall. Yes, please proceed.
Thank you, Waziri. The first one was that we have been training, the retooling we have been doing has been exactly the same thing. This is not true. When
volume a bit.
Hello? Okay. Yeah, the first one was about the fact that we have been retooling the same thing for 2 years. This is not true. One, when we started by training our teachers with the basic education framework because they had to know this framework as a result of the reform. Then we introduced them to the professional documents that were required in the new reform. Then the learning areas at that time, generally. Then next, we went to the pedagogical content knowledge, the professional bit. Then now, because KICD had rationalized the learning areas, we now had to take the teachers through. Maybe this is why sometimes it seems as if we are repeating, because we first trained them holistically in the learning areas, then the rationalized areas that KICD did. But I think this is the essence of retooling, that you are not retooled once. In fact, we shall, government getting this money and funding us, we will keep retraining. They are like refresher courses, and there is nothing bad about it. But next, which now we did in November 2024, this was again specifically, like I said, to prepare teachers to transition our learners to grade 9, period. So it was very specific. Now, the next one, the next question was, although it
the P1 teachers, and if you can answer Claire's question quickly on training of leaders in schools.
Yeah, the next one was on the P1 teachers, who then acquired diploma status. We have not forsaken these teachers as the CSAs, yeah. We have advertised currently for 8,707 teaching vacancies. Go to our portal right now. We have advertised. And we are saying those people who now got a diploma away from the certificate, in our guidelines, they will get an extra 5 marks, which means they are more advantaged and they will get better marks than maybe the one who has a certificate, the P1. So we have not forsaken them. The second one is about when shall we train teachers, the leaders. Of course, this is in 2025. This is what we are doing. And what we do is that we come up with the content right here at KICD, where our teachers are involved. We work as a multi-sectoral matter, so that it is KICD, NEC, and TSC as the coordinator. So this will be prepared and we shall do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think our time has run out. We are closing at 9. And there were some questions that were asked by the the TV 47 team on issues corruption and issues of whether junior school is intended to be a standalone. It is not. It is going to be part and parcel of the primary school. It's domiciled there, but it does not stand alone. The leader will be one. We are working on how that leadership and the qualification is going to be. Number 2, on issues corruption is not tolerated in the ministry. Should you, and I alluded to that earlier with respect to issues capitation, should you be involved in any form of corruption, what then would happen is the laws will take their course and you will be prosecuted accordingly. So in terms of corruption, we are doing the auditing. There are other measures that we are putting in place to ensure that this is controlled, including coming up with the new digital platform, the CHEMIS, to ensure that everything that is going to be done can be seen in that system, including the numbers of enrollment, the capitation, the schools that we have, how the monies are expended. So ladies and gentlemen, I think we've come to the end, and what I would like to share briefly is that the issue that is of concern is the issue related to the construction of classrooms. That, as I said earlier, is ongoing, and we are sure that come January 2025, we'll be quite prepared to have the grade 9 transition comfortably. Should there be any challenge, as I indicated, we will be prepared as a team, and you can see we are all putting our heads together to ensure that each and every aspect of that transition is taken care of, and working as a team, we are able to back each other, including, you know, the head teachers of those primary schools who are going to handle this. We are working with them to ensure that they will be able to handle whatever situation that arises at that time. The textbooks we've confirmed are going to be in place by the time the schools open, because they are all ready. Capitation is going to be provided. In fact, we are working very hard with the Treasury to ensure that capitation is in schools before they open. Whatever percentage, it might not be the 100% of it, but whatever percentage that will be available from Treasury will be there, so that when the schools open, the teachers don't have problems relating to it. In fact, I think even this term 3, capitation was released 2 days before the schools opened, which helped them actually transition very, very easily. Placement at senior school, the ministry has developed, you know, the guidelines for that placement that is going to happen in 2025. And what is important to remember is that from 2012, we have been in a transition, and we are continuing in that transition. We are within it. And where we find issues, we are navigating, tweaking, amending, reviewing, so that the system is fit for purpose. We intend to ensure that this CBC, which is one of the best programs, does not fail us. Issues relating to questions like you raised of the parents. It's important for parents to be involved in their students' schoolwork. You know, in the West, sometimes you might not know what your child is doing in school. I was being told that there are some consents in higher learning institutions that you sign, and then you find that a student has never gone to class. So it is so important for us to be involved in what our children are doing, so that you don't end up wondering whether you sent your child to school because you are never involved in it. And as the professor here said, where you have a question, you are allowed to walk to the school and ask, is this what was requested for? Is there an alternative? Is there something that can happen? So be involved, and we are encouraging it. And lastly, the government is implementing Article 53 of the Constitution vis-a-vis the basic education. So there is no provision anywhere where we allow any sort of levies to be levied or to be fees to be paid by parents. Where that is done, please let the ministry know. Action would be taken against those particular teachers. So ladies and gentlemen, let me take this chance once again to thank you for listening to us. And we are available. We have a website, and in that website, we have posted a number of guidelines, a number of issues, including the schools that were closed, why they were closed, the 348. The reasons, the report for their closure are already posted in that website. When they will be opened, we'll post that same information in that website. So if you have any comments, any other questions that you have, please do not hesitate to write to us. And Daktari, I'll look at the petition. I know Professor Dote is here. We'll sit together and see what we can do in that space. So we are quite open to just working together, consulting, so that, because we are all interested in ensuring that this thing works. So we are going to work together, as I've said, to ensure that this succeeds, that the education sector takes the place that it should in our country. Otherwise, thank you so much, and God bless you. We'll be doing this, I think, much more. Thank you. This was for basic education. The next one is going to be for higher education, this team here, and TVETs. We'll have one very soon, maybe next month, to also deal with the issues surrounding the universities, issues on TVET, issues on the challenges that are in the universities with respect to the debts. We are working on a reform agenda, and we've started yesterday. We passed one CAB member for Nairobi University, and we are sure that working together, we are going to revive this sector so that we bring it to where it should be. Thank you, and God bless you.
Okay, we will have a closing prayer. The prayer will be by Violet Mundia from the Ministry of Education.
Thank you. Let's believe and pray. Heavenly Father, we want to come before your throne with thanksgiving in our hearts. Father, we want to thank you that you have made this session possible. You have taken us through very well. You have deliberated upon issues that are affecting the education